Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. This week, I wasn't sure what we were going to be discussing, but something great came to me. Great is maybe a bit of a strong word, but something fortuitous has happened with the release of Witcher Season 3 on Netflix on, I believe, Thursday this week. And I've got to be honest, I loved Witcher Season 1. I thought it was very, very fun. It wasn't a faithful adaptation of the book to the T, but it was a good, general, all-rounded show, right? Okay, I think a lot of people thought the same. Yes, it was jarring in places, etc., but it was a good start to, a book adapted into games, adapted into a show, essentially, even though the games, of course, take happen later in the timeline. I'm fumbling over my words a lot today, it seems. But season 2, of course, was very, very contentious, should I say. I will get my words right. Because it deviated a lot more from the books than the first season and essentially created a whole plot line that was unnecessary and felt very it felt like character assassination at times for especially Yennefer, but the characters as a whole, right? Okay, so season 3 comes out, and I'm dubious, of course. Everyone's dubious because not only is this the follow-on from that season 2, but we know that this is the last time Henry Cavill will be playing Geralt, with Liam Hemsworth coming on to replace him at the end of this season, which, of course, this is only part 1 of season 3 as well. Let us say that. But I went into it. I thought, let's give it a try. There's still some redeeming qualities to this, potentially. And I've got to be honest, I wasn't too disappointed. Episode 1 was actually a very strong episode. I think it really helped re-establish this world as the Witcher world. I think that's one thing that season 2 really undid. This season 3, episode 1, managed to kind of patch that together again. You feel like Geralt is as good as ever. Geralt was always the kind of the strong point throughout these seasons, so that's good to see continue. Yennefer feels back to form in this first part of season 3. Ciri, I find Ciri troublesome as a character even in the source material. I find she's much more interesting in Witcher 3, the game, rather than in the books. I found her to be a very hard character to follow at times, especially in later books. So I can't speak too much on Ciri anyways, because I don't find Ciri to be too interesting of a character to me. But I think the portrayal is good, because if I don't care too much, then it's the right portrayal, if that makes sense. I think as regards those three, I think as regards the overall arc of the story, this is more religiously is maybe the wrong word, but more stringent in following the book's Time of Contempt. This one obviously adapting a lot out of. And I think it generally works. Now, I will say I was trying to binge it all before doing the podcast. I didn't manage to do that. So I am currently halfway through episode 4. So I can't give a full comprehensive, this was great season review, but I think I can talk a decent length on a few things that I liked and a few things that I didn't. So those are kind of the main points as to what I liked about the season thus far. I have to be honest, what I think I found very hard with this season is Time of Contempt, I think, was my favorite of the books. I think it has a lot going on. There's a lot of different parts moving. And I think that it really sets the stage for what happens there on after. And kind of everything that happens after, how do I put it? Yes, a book obviously carries on, but it feels like a lot of the things that happen in Time of Contempt carry on not only into the next book, but the books after. This is a very pivotal moment in the story of the Witcher universe. Stuff that happens in this is picked up on in the games way later, for example, and all that type of stuff. So this is like a very pivotal moment in the Witcher universe. Not in the least because of the I don't know about how they adapt it in the show yet, because I haven't got to that. But the ball, right? The ball is a very big, important part of the structure of the North changing, right? very quickly after that, things changed very rapidly. And so I'm very interested in this period of Witcher lore. And so for me, I feel like they're focusing in parts on the wrong things. For example, I think I still didn't like. This is mainly why I didn't like it. I don't like the way they've took Francesca Finderbear as regards. Like, I liked it when she was part of the majors, and then things happened as regards as the conclave was coming closer. Essentially, I like that. I liked that more. So I'm still not a big fan of the whole Francesca Elves storyline. I think they're not particularly very interesting in this show. I think the Witcher universe had a very interesting set of elven characters, both in the books and again in the games later on. I think that the kind of besmirch is a very strong word, but I do feel like it's sort of fitting. It feels like these elves are being besmirched, and it's kind of not interesting to watch the elven scenes. I do also think that Emir has kind of been underserved in this. As yet, not because of the acting. I don't think the acting has anything particularly wrong with it. I don't think it's great. Like, Emir's actor, I don't know off the top of my head, isn't like blowing me away with his dialogue or anything, but I don't think he's bad. But one thing I find is that because of the way they've approached the Cirilla Fiona, the fake Ciri storyline in this, there's a lot taken out of the Nilfgaardian politics that happens in this period, and like with Assyria Var Anahead, and like dealing with like the court as regards what's happening in Nilfgaard, because I think that's very important. I think knowing that Nilfgaard isn't just this like 2 or 3 characters, because how do I put it? The North is comprised of so many characters at this point, even in the show. And then it feels like what they've done here is really reduced Nilfgaard to like 3 characters, which is essentially Emir, Kahir, and Fringilla, which she's only had a very small part in this season thus far. Which, you know, I don't know where that's going yet, because again, I've not finished the season, but I very much enjoyed the parts in the book, seeing the reaction to this fake Ciri, and for example, the very ending moment where Emir basically kind of lets fake Ciri go. I forget whether that's in Time of Contempt or the next book, but that was a very I think it's a very poignant scene to learn about Emir and learn about his motives and his ideas and what he's trying to do here. I feel like right now he's just being very underserved as a character, and so is Nilfgaard as an entity, so to speak, in the world. Nilfgaard is more than just the big bad empire. Like, there's more going on inside Nilfgaard, and I think that would have been better displayed by way of what they could have done with the actual storyline for the fake Ciri that was in the book, rather than what they do in the show, which is kind of this one and done kind of like let's go for body horror thing. Like, I don't even quite understand it, because it's like I get it because Vilgefortz, and this is a spoiler by the way if anyone who doesn't know, so I don't know how the season ends, but Vilgefortz in the books have been out forever, so deal with it. Vilgefortz in the book is experimenting and does experiment, and, you know, has moments where he is both torturing Ciri and Yennefer. But in this, I feel like they've went with the kind of shock factor of like, oh, they're trying to make another Ciri, and I don't quite get how that links in yet. Like I say, I haven't finished the season, so there might be like a big reveal as regards that, but it feels kind of very weak as a replacement for the original storyline, if that makes sense. Similarly to that, I find that when they change these characters, they are and then take time to focus on them, I feel like they're underserving the main characters, right? Like, I feel like the Francesca stuff could very much could have been removed, like, for the large majority, and the show would run essentially the same. I also find that what am I trying to say? Dijkstra and Philippa as well. They're meant to be mysterious entities. In this show, I feel like they're being really, really demystified to the point that like I don't find them intriguing anymore. I feel like it's the Boba Fett effect, right? If you take the man out of the mask, suddenly he's not as mystifying. It's Vader. It's all those types of characters, right? And Philippa and Dijkstra are always these characters who have things quite tight to their chest. And yes, that's displayed in the show, and sometimes quite to effect. And you know, I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of having, especially Dijkstra, get a little bit more time on screen. But you know, when you meet Philippa, for example, in the games, you still don't know what she's up to. You don't know what she's doing, and I feel like I would have preferred as a viewer, and I understand you have to give some kind of understanding of what these characters are doing. I would have preferred as a viewer to have that kind of same feeling. I feel like Philippa is not this mastermind in the show. I feel like she's just kind of going through the motions as much as anyone else is. I also I've got to say, I don't think, how do I put it? Radovid. Let me just say that first of all. Radovid, being Vizimia's brother in this, I don't like personally. I think, you know, it's a very different Radovid to what we're used to from later material. And personally, I think it doesn't really add anything. It's like one line in the show where, like, it's again slightly different to what happens in the books, but Yennefer meets with Vizimia for a moment, and she says, "Oh, we would like Philippa to come to the conclave." So Philippa's going, and then Deke's just like, kind of basically, it's like he says, "You must." Vizimia says Philippa has to go, and Dijkstra, and then like as a little tag on the end again, it's like and Radovid, and I'm just like, Radovid does not need to be there, like, at all. It feels like what they're trying to do is really just, for want of a better term, bum rush everything into as this season as they can, and it feels like they're not taking the time to pace it correctly. And it's kind of frustrating because it feels like they're just serving some of these characters. One that really stood out to me, and I really hated it because I don't think she was like this at all in the books from what I can remember. Is it Margarita Lozantila? Yeah, Margarita Lozantila. Yeah, that's right. And she in the Witcher, the show, she shows up for like literally one scene thus far. I don't know if she shows up again at the ball, but she's in this one scene, and like I find that scene in the book was a lot more necessary because it was discussing with Siri about like who she was and what she's doing and what Aretusa will be like, and I feel like it was a very much like it's a setup of a possible path that then doesn't happen, right? So it's very important to know that that's what it could have been like. And they kind of do a similar thing in the show, but they make it like totally the opposite. They make it like, oh, you wouldn't want to do this at all. You wouldn't want to go to Aretusa at all. Like, it's meant to kind of vilify Aretusa to the audience, right? But the fact that they use Margarita Lozantila to do that is very annoying to me because I feel like in the book, yes, she was a little bit brusque in places, but she wasn't a cruel character. In fact, she seemed very nurturing as a character to me when I was reading the book. I mean, maybe I'm misconstruing this, but I just think this version was just like needlessly like annoying for the sake of just being annoying. I don't quite get what the writers are trying to do by deconstructing all of the witches and mages, etc., to be baddies, essentially. Like, not all of them are. Like, the fact that they're making it out like Jasiah, Triss, and Yennefer are the only good witches, essentially, is like super like incorrect to what, like, you know, all of them have their deeds that they're doing, and yeah, like Sabrina Gleversig is up to things, and so is, but they're all they're not all like deplorable by standard, right? I feel like the way they kind of went with this is kind of a weird one for me. I also feel like, and the one thing I will say is that the Wild Hunt is being shoehorned in, which is weird because like the Wild Hunt is like the main part of all this. That's what it's building up to. But like there was a scene where the Wild Hunt just kind of appeared, and it was like what's this? Like, I understand that there was, precedents for this in earlier seasons, but like, it just feels like they're trying to touchstone all the points that are relevant for Time of Contempt as a book, and really just throw it into like as quickly as possible together. And like, I understand that they have a season format. I understand that they have to do things more concisely, but there's certain scenes that could have been removed and certain other things that could have been added to make this show better at telling the story that it wants to tell. That makes sense. And I just think, I don't know, I think the show is quite jarring in a lot of ways. And one thing I will note, and I was reading a few reviews to see what kind of other people were saying, and this one thing I do agree with. This show is taking too many liberties with its dialogue. And what I mean by that is the dialogue is very modern. There's certain phrases that are used, and certain jokes, and certain ways of referral that really do take you out the story for a moment. And I get that sometimes those can be a little bit funny, like a little bit of pokey proddy at the fact that this is like old timey and we're in the modern century. Sometimes that can be funny, right? Like, oh, how would you even say that? Or like I don't know how to describe it, but like there's certain points where you can make a joke of the fact that dialogue is different in our world versus the Witcher world, for example, or any world. That can be a fun little joke now and again, but it feels like the show is kind of really trying. It happens a lot with Yaskia, funnily enough. The show is really trying to like push this kind of edgy, quirky dialogue, and it's like you are it feels like CW dialogue at times, and that's CW shows are arguably better placed to do that, right? Because they're in more modern settings usually, but it feels like that sort of dialogue sometimes. And it's very disappointing because it's just not congruous with the Witcher world. I can't think of many examples off the top of my head, but if you were to watch the season, I feel like there'll be certain points where you would feel that as well. So what am I trying to say about The Witcher season 3? I don't hate it. I don't love it either. And I think that's kind of where I'm sat with it at the moment. I don't think this is like the pièce de résistance of like Witcher, material. I think there's much better stuff. I think sometimes, even though the books can sometimes be very drawn out and painful at points, and I will say that because I don't think it's right to say the book was better all the time. The book is not always better. In some books, especially not Time of Contempt, but the next book, I forgot what it's called at the moment. I'm dumb. But was very drawn out for me, and I very much struggled with it. The part where Ciri is being chased by Leo Bonnard and all that type of stuff. It's so strung out, and like, so I know that the books aren't the best out of the best material wise, but like, I think, how do I put it? I think the show is underserving even that at times. It's doing well in other parts, don't get me wrong, and I think it has its moments. And I think the Yennefer, Ciri, Geralt trifecta is still working as of yet. Obviously, we know that Henry Cavill's leaving at the end of this season, but I'm interested to see the rest of the season, which is coming out, I think, at the end of this month. I think maybe. I'm very interested to see what happens with that. And yeah, we'll be back to talk about that when that releases. So, with that said, guys, thank you very much for watching/listening. I think this is a very interesting discussion, especially because this is the last season, again, as I said, with Henry Cavill. So it'll be interesting to see how this one ends, because they have said that this will be like it will be a handoff in universe, like the change will happen in universe, almost like a Doctor Who-esque change. And they said they've got a law reason for it. So I'm very excited to see that. Well, not excited, very interested, intrigued. But we'll see. We'll see. And for now, The Witcher Season 3, it's all right. Thank you guys for watching/listening. As always, I'll say again, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, guys.